Hello, fellow book lovers. This is Vihil Vigil. I am your gracious admin for the Magistra Book Club and your host. I'm super excited to be meeting with you today. It is the final meeting of the book club for Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And we've really enjoyed reading this book over the last month. And I have to say that I have read every single page, the book cover to cover, and I just have to say that I really loved it. I've really enjoyed reading through Rachel Hollis's book. Her humor is hilarious. Not everything that she says we are going to agree with 100%, but I would say a good 98-ish% of her story was just captivating. I really loved it and I really enjoyed it. So as we've been going through the book, we've been talking about in each of our conversations, it's been 4 chapters at a time. And these are the last 4 chapters that I'm really excited to talk to you about, chapters 17 through 20. And if you haven't read the book and if you haven't been following along on the other conversations, all of her chapters start with a lie, something that we were told to believe by someone, or we just decided to believe for ourselves that wasn't necessarily true. And so we're going to start right away with chapter 17. And the lie is, I am defined by my weight. Rachel Hollis goes through this chapter talking about her experiences with being underweight, with being overweight, what it did to her as a person, the body issues that she continuously struggled with, which I know that we all, I mean, I know that I have, struggled with throughout my life, especially in adolescence. It was just really hard to figure out, what felt right for me, how to stay healthy, how to stay in shape. And I really appreciated some of the honest revelations and experiences that she shared, from diet pills to slim fast shakes, and binge eating to overworking out. It's a very touchy subject, and I think that I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the fact that she touched on that in her book. I did skip over the first couple of pages on where I wanted to start sharing with my highlighted parts. And the first one that I want to share with you is on the page 181. And she says, here's what I can tell you truthfully about diet and exercise and weight and what it means in my life. Who you are today is incredible. You have so many wonderful qualities to offer the world, and they are uniquely yours. I believe your creator delights in the intricacies of you, and he is filled with joy when you live out your potential. I also believe that humans were not made to be out of shape and severely overweight. I think we function better mentally, emotionally, and physically when we take care of our bodies with nourishment, water, and exercise. The lie I used to believe was about my weight would define me, that it would speak volumes about who I was as a person. Today, I believe it's not your weight that defines you, but the care and consideration you put into your body that absolutely does. Because I work in media and because I've had years of accidentally upsetting people online without ever meaning to do so, I already know that my saying this will annoy some people. I can already imagine the emails I'll get, the list of reasons why you or someone you know is justifiably obese, the trauma you've lived through. In some cases, food is your coping mechanism. Or maybe I'll hear the opposite. Maybe you have an eating disorder like anorexia. You're thin, but totally unhealthy because your body doesn't get the nutrients that it needs. Or maybe you drink every single day because you're a single parent or you're walking through a hard season. All of these things are justifiable. All of these are valid reasons to negate care for yourself for a time. Childhood trauma is not a life sentence. Extreme emotional pain doesn't guarantee emotional pain for the rest of your life. I know this is true because I am a living, breathing, flourishing example of someone who chooses to rise above the trauma of her past. Now, I want to pause right there because living through trauma of your childhood and of your past, it doesn't just go away. We, of course, all know that with amazing therapy, through coaching, through really working through those elements of your life and those horrors that some of us have experienced, is where we will find that freedom to be able to choose to live healthier lives, that we don't have to, cover and mask the things that, we don't want to think about with abuse of ourselves. So I'll continue. You can choose whether or not to stay there. You can choose to continue to abuse your body because it's all you know. You can choose to live in that place because it's the path of least resistance. You can choose to settle for a half-lived life because you don't even know there's another way, or perhaps you have no idea how to pull yourself out of it. But please, please stop making excuses for the whys. Stop telling yourself that you deserve this life. Please stop justifying a crappy existence simply because that's the way it's always been. Just as you've chosen to stay in this place for so long, you can also choose to get yourself out of it. You need to be healthy. And I wholeheartedly agree. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. And she continues with saying, you don't have to be a certain size. You don't have to look great in a bikini. And I absolutely agree with that. I think that we don't have to be a certain size, but we know we look beautiful in a bikini, no matter what size we are, because we deserve that, because we are amazing and you are amazing. And I don't think that you have to be a certain size. What I do think, and I do agree with Rachel Hollis in this aspect, is that you have to be healthy. You need to consume half your weight in ounces of water on a daily basis. And I always show my big water cups to remind everyone that it's so important, that we hydrate well and that we get some sort of exercise, at least for 30 minutes a day, as well as, perform some sort of meditation, some sort of self-reflection, some way for us to sort of be at peace with ourselves and find that grounding that is so, so very important. She also denotes, and I will agree with this as well, you need to stop filling your body with garbage like diet sodas and fast foods and lattes that are 1.5 million calories. Now, Lord knows I love my latte. However, also be smart about your ordering. If you're making your lattes at home, then you know what goes into it. If you're getting your lattes at your local coffee shop, make sure that you know what's being put in it. A lot of the flavorings have like a bazillion calories. If you want your French vanilla flavors, go for the sugar-free ones. Always ask for a sugar-free one. At least that will help to cut down on some of those liquid calories. You need to get up off the sofa and out of the bed and move around. Get out of the fog that you've been living in and see your life for what it is. And I know that's really hard for some, to see our lives the way that they are, because some of us might not love the way that our lives are. And that's when you really start to dig deep into your personality and to your life and to the things that you want to change and the things that you know that you need to improve upon. That's when you start realizing, I need help. And how do we get help? We reach out. You get online and you look for a free counseling service. You reach out to a coach such as myself. Health, wellness, and business is my jam. If maybe you don't connect with me as a coach, I can certainly recommend you. The Empowerment Empire has a great reach of connecting women with resources that they need, including health and mental wellness. So I will continue here. On the bottom of page 184, she talks about things that helped me. Now, if you've been following along in our review of the book, then you'll know that the very end of all of her chapters talk about the things that helped me, and she typically will offer 3 suggestions. Number 1 is mantras, and I love this one. In my first fiction book I ever wrote, the main character walks around where she is reciting a mantra. I am strong, I am smart, I am courageous. She's nervous and unsure of herself, so she says it over and over again all day long. You need to replace that voice with something positive. If you have these negative self-talks in your brain, replace it with something positive. It's when I also share my book, 100 Affirmations to Inspire You. If you don't have a lot of positive words that you can say about yourself right now, send me a message and I will send you a free book, a 100 Affirmations to Inspire You, because I think it is so important that we have really amazing positive self-talk. Some come up with a mantra and say it to yourself 1,000 times a day until it becomes real. And I cannot agree with that more. Number 2 of things that helped me, editing my media. If you're struggling to live up to a certain standard, it seems as though that everywhere you turn, you see a gorgeous size 0 model with perfect glossy hair. And if every time you see this stuff, it depresses you or gives you the anxiety, then stop consuming this type of social media. Surround yourself with positive, uplifting role models who focus on being strong and healthy. Now, I'm not saying women who are supermodels or do makeup tutorials or Instagram fitness models are bad, but there are seasons that following them doesn't make sense. So just be smart about the social media that you consume. And number 3, preparation. You have to prepare in advance for anything that you want to do well, period. As you know, if you follow me on social, you'll know I am a huge advocate of power planning. We plan out all the things in our lives, from our personal calendars to health calendars to business approaches to things that we're going to be doing in our professional life, because the better you plan, the more successful that you will be. So I cannot agree with her more in that. And then in the end, if you wait until the last minute, you are not likely to achieve anything. You want to accomplish a healthier life, map out how you're going to get there. If you're not exactly sure how to map out how to improve the health of your life, then reach out. You will hear me say this often: reach out to me and I will connect you with someone. I will connect you with a resource. Maybe it is, we have a connection and I can work with you personally. Just definitely reach out. I have a host of amazing coaches that I refer people to who, would line up with your goals. So chapter 18, I need a drink. Girl, go wash your face, go get a glass of wine. We talk about that in several of my programs, where what are we self-medicating and when is enough enough? I skipped over the first couple of pages where she talks about her experiences of when her and her husband were going through this process of trying to adopt. And there were so many obstacles that got in her way and so many setbacks that were not allowing her and her family to progress forward. She also experienced life as a foster care, and that came with its own challenges. And so the result was cocktails and martinis at night, bottles of wine as opposed to a glass of wine. And she realized that over the years that was not who she was as a person, and that's not who she wanted to move forward being. She writes, a little bit of alcohol will make the difference between anxiety and ease, or frustration and contentment. For the last years of my career, I've gotten notes from people thanking me for my honesty. I've heard that when I shared my story, other women felt they are not so alone. Those women who were sending me notes, they've done that for me in return. I really appreciate how she will oftentimes say her sharing of her experiences, yes, it is helping others, but the acknowledgement of that help coming back to her is in and of itself an amazing experience. And I have to agree with that as well. We just put out our Boss Latinas anthology in August, and that is some amazing stories by 31 authors who are putting out their struggles into the world to normalize the fact that difficult things happen and that hard life situations occur. And when we share about them, we find that camaraderie with others who have also experienced those things. And then we form this bond, this sisterhood, and we are all encouraged together to be able to move forward. So I will continue that. Make no mistake, drinking the way that I drank in a form of medication, life felt hard or overwhelming. So I just put something in my body to make it feel better. It was a short-term solution, as you all know. And then when the alcohol wore off, the problems were still there. No matter what you use to self-medicate, if you are masking something, as soon as that mask is, has waned off, the problem is still there. So yes, some of us definitely enjoy taking, an evening off, and having glasses of wine or having drinks with friends. But it's when you are constantly masking the things of your life, the feelings, the emotions, the struggles in life, that's when you need to recognize that something else needs to be happening. Drinking can be an attempt to escape, but you cannot escape the realities of your life forever. And I cannot agree with her more. In fact, she writes, there is only one way to manage the stresses of this life properly, and that is to build up healthy immune systems, for lack of a better, cooler description. Stick with me here. I promise these analogies will make sense in a minute. At the bottom of page 193, she writes, the difficult seasons we walk through are how we learn to build up strength to manage any situation. The strongest people you know, they've probably walked some pretty hard roads and have built up the necessary skills to be the emotional giants that they are. When they encounter hard things, their seasoned bodies rely on the good antibiotics they built up to handle that sort of a scenario. She continues, I had to teach myself better ways to handle stress in painful seasons. I had to teach myself better habits. Having a drink will always be the easiest way out. It requires the least effort, but demands the most in retribution. Running, having dinner with my girlfriends, praying, going to therapy, or allowing myself to cry are the best methods that I know of for building up the strength necessary to carry on. These habits make me strong enough to handle the hard stuff, meaning I don't reach for the easy way out. These are learned skills. When you, it may seem very simple. It may seem that, of course we could just go out for a run, but for some, it is not that easy. For some, it really takes just getting up and stepping outside and then walking halfway down the block, walking all the way around the block. Getting to the gym and just standing on the treadmill is, a feat for some. So just know that it's going to be a process and that it's not something that you should be expected to perfect the first day that you attempt to change these habits. Food, water, shelter, healthy relationships, those are the things that you need. Anything else you insert into that category becomes a dangerous crutch, and you don't need a crutch if you are strong enough to walk on your own. If you don't feel strong, as if you read these lines, you feel weak in your soul, I want you to ask yourself if you are pushing to find strength or if you are reaching for a quick fix. Strength is never easy to come by, and I think a lot of us know that. It's like building up muscles at the gym, as we were just talking about. First, you have to break down the weaker parts of your body before you can build them back up. The process is painful, as many of us know. Getting back into the gym is not easy. And it takes time, often way longer than anyone expects it to. Just like with your immune system, you'll get stronger in one area and then something hard will come along that you've never encountered before. You'll have to learn and grow in a new area, which can feel discouraging if you've already walked through hard seasons in the past. But fighting through those times is how you get tougher. It's how you become the person you were meant to be. And then things that helped me. Number one, learning about habits. I read an awesome book last year called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Turns out so many of our negative behaviors, drinking, smoking, etc., are long ingrained habits triggered by a specific cue. So for me, I felt stressed out, which cued a bad habit in drinking. By identifying my cue, I could replace it with a better coping mechanism, which for me is time with my girlfriends or a long distance run. Number two, things that helped me, acknowledging my reality. Self-awareness is one of the most important skills to acquire in the world. For months, I ignored the negative side effects until one day I finally forced myself to acknowledge who I was and what was really going on. It's so easy to ignore weakness like that, particularly if it's wrapped up in self-care or coping, but you're never going to move past a problem if you can't even admit to having it in the first place. Acknowledgement is one of the most hardest elements to changing a habit. Once you get there, even little bits, even small steps every day, eventually you will get to the great change that you so seek. And number three, removing the temptation. Of course, if you're struggling with how much you drink, or then remove the alcohol. If you binge eat, get rid of the cookies. Yes, and also seek counseling and therapy to be able to help shift your mindset. I think it is one of the most important things that we have to understand that we need to do. Chapter 19, there's only one right way to be. This is, I think, so important for so many of us who are striving for this certain level of life, that you have to be this one way. But as we all know, there are so many different ways to being, so many different ways for all of us, whether, and so many different ways of being in different phases of our life. So just because your way of being today is one way does not mean that it will work for you forever. On the page, let's see, bottom of page 199, I wanted to share this passage. I've built a business based on the idea of community with other women, and it's a digital tapestry of people from all over the world. What I've learned over the years is that regardless of how our looks may differ, we are way more alike than we are different. And I could not agree more with that. And Rachel Hollis continues, I am a Christian, but I fully love and accept you and want to hang out with you and be friends with you if you're Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or Jedi or love the opposite sex or love the same sex or love Rick Springfield circa 1983. She's definitely an 80s kid. Not only that, I think the ability to seek out community with people who are different from me makes me a stronger, better version of myself. Trying to be in community with people who don't look or vote or believe like you do, though sometimes uncomfortable, will help you stretch and grow into the best version of yourself. I like this chapter a lot. On page 201, she writes, we have to continue if there are areas where we stay safely inside the lines we've drawn or those drawn for us by our family of origin, and how we can know the right community to seek out if we've never been a part of it before. Will you treat me different because of one of my beliefs? Will you decide that we can't be friends if we have a difference of opinion? Ask yourself this question. Is it possible that the conversations we might have together, the questions we might wrestle with, the postures we'll have to adopt in order to engage in a meaningful relationship would help us grow into better versions of ourselves? Yes. One of my best friends is gay, African American, and Mexican American. 3 incredibly powerful narratives have shaped the woman she is. And there was so much strength, history, beauty, confidence, pain, empathy, anger, truth, and courage in her story. What if I'd never heard it? Me, the girl who once stared at a couple in Disneyland years ago, she talks about in one of her previous chapters, how she used to live inside this bubble where she never interacted with girls who weren't white like she is. What if she had stayed there? What if we hadn't intentionally looked for a church that was multicultural so our children wouldn't be raised with the same homogenized view that we were? What if I hadn't asked my friend to happy hour that first time, this friend that didn't look like her, that had a different lifestyle as her? What if she didn't extend that hand and reach out to befriend her? At the end of one of my hip hop dance classes, the room breaks into smaller groups so that we can watch each other perform. I love this part where she shares about her experiences joining a hip hop dance class. Now, she is no hip hop dancer, as she states multiple times. However, she will get out there and she will try the moves, and it's putting herself into a different environment to experience, to learn, to grow. And I think that's one of the most important things that we learned from this particular chapter is that she's willing to put herself in an uncomfortable situation so that she herself can learn and she herself can grow. And I want to continue down page 204. We do not need to change our entire belief system to make this a reality. We can simply adjust our posture to consider a wider, more inclusive community. If we adjust our posture, it will change the way we speak. It will change the way we listen. We will see the person, not the category that they fall into. We need to be in a wider community, not because we're attempting to sharpen their clarity on a subject, but because we're hoping to soften the edges of our own hearts. I think that is a great way to express that sentiment. So she asks, what does your story look like? Is it filled with all the same colors and lines? Do all the characters in your book look and act like each other? Imagine what would happen. Imagine how beautiful the same scene might appear, what it would mean for your worldview or your children's worldviews if you added different hues, different narratives, different dialogues. What would it mean to challenge your outlook every now and again? What would it mean for your relationship with your own understanding if you had to ask more questions? Every day you get to choose the way your world looks. Regardless of how you were raised or what you were taught to believe, you get to decide where your story goes from here. Look at the pictures in your book. Are they all one color? Every year, you close a new chapter in your story. Please, please, please don't write the same one 75 times and call it a life. I am a huge advocate of surrounding yourself with diversity, with amazing people who identify in different ways, who look different than you, who think different than you. We are a massive community. And the more that we get to know each other, the more we can really appreciate the intricacies that one another bring to the community. And then, of course, the things that helped me in the last few pages of this chapter. Number one is changing churches. For her and her husband, they looked up one day and realized that they went to an affluent church and that 99.9% of their church family was white. And that is not what the body of Christ looks like to her. In every color and style and background, she wanted to see a church that was intentionally multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multi-generational, which they were able to find and form a real community that they felt really connected with who they were as well. Number two, acknowledging her position. No, it's not easy to admit that you've done things or said things or believed things that were hurtful, particularly when you weren't even aware of them. But if you don't admit to the problem, how will you ever change? So look around you, and how much diversity do you see? Do you embrace diversity to bring into your life, to open your mind and open your experiences and your children's experiences? I greatly appreciate the fact that she states that several times in this final chapter. Number three, ask humbling questions. She notes here that her dear friend has been an incredible teacher for her in so many ways, because she allows her to ask questions about race and white privilege and unconscious bias that could potentially be hurtful in her own ignorance. So if you know that you have a friend who is different than you, have the conversation with them and say, is it okay if I ask you questions? Is it okay if I learn more about you? Because I'm not you and I don't have the diversity that maybe you bring to our relationship. So can I ask you about yourself and I'll share with you about me? When we really learn to ask polite questions, coming from a space of general authenticity, then we become so much better for it. We broaden our own sense of the world and we become a much better person for it. The final chapter in the book, Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis, is a really good one. I really, really enjoyed the final chapter of her book. And the lie for chapter 20 is, I need a hero. And of course, she notes that more than one of her chapters in this book will reference her 80s love. So on the page 211 is where I want to start with quoting her, where she writes, I don't need to find anyone. Right now, in this moment, I'm my own hero. It was a profound realization in my life. I had pushed myself to do something I never thought I could be capable of, and it lit a fire within my soul. Nobody forced me to put in those miles. Nobody woke up in the morning and made me research the right shoes or which GU packets were disgusting. Nobody else got the sunburns or the blisters or saved up to pay the entrance fees. That was all me. She's talking about her experiences with running, marathons and what goes into that. And the things you've achieved, the big and the little stuff that peppers your life and adds flavor, the achievements that have made you who you are, those are all you. So don't be afraid to celebrate you. Celebrate your amazing self and all of the things that you accomplished. I heard once that every author has a theme and they basically just write the same message over and over in each book, despite the plot or the characters. This is obviously my truth, even if I was totally oblivious to it at the time. Every book I've ever written is based on this core theme of my life. It's the lesson I've heard over and over again, so inevitably it weaves its way through my stories and this book especially now. It is the gift I wish to give every person I know. It is the thing I wish someone had taught me as a child. And instead, I had to navigate life and figure it out on my own. And it is the greatest lesson I have to give to you. Only you have the power to change your life. This is the truth. And I really appreciate that. On the following pages, these are just the last couple of pages. You have the ability to change your life. You've always had the power, Dorothy. You just have to stop waiting for someone else to do it for you. There is no easy way out of this. There is no life hack, just you and your God-given strength and how much you desire change. I hope, pray, wish, cross my fingers and toes that you will look around and find an opportunity to be your own hero. Every woman should feel that kind of pride. But if you're seeking change, you shouldn't just want that for yourself. You should need it. You need to set a goal for yourself and then work your butt off to get there. You need to make a move right now while you're still on fire from this book about what goal setting for yourself looks like. And then you need to go for it. You need to do it. You need to prove to yourself that you are capable of anything you set your mind to because you have the power. Thank you, Rachel Hollis, for reminding us of that. I absolutely 100% agree. So in the very last chapter, in the very last paragraph, I really love this piece. I feel like I want to type it up and put it on the wall and put it in a beautiful frame so that my daughter and I can read it every day. Girl, get a hold of your life. Stop medicating, stop hiding out, stop being afraid, stop giving away pieces of yourself, stop saying you can't do it. Stop the negative self-talk, stop abusing your body and stop putting it off for tomorrow or Monday or next year. Stop crying about what happened and take control of what happens next. So get up right now, rise up from where you've been, scrub away the tears and the pain of yesterday and start again. Girl, wash your face. And with that, this concludes our experience of reading through Rachel Hollis's book, Girl, Wash Your Face. I know that it's not a favorite for everybody, and that's okay, but it really was a favorite for me. I read a ton of books and I love sharing them with people, which is why I started this Magistra Book Club. So I can come on here and I can share my favorite passages of the books with you and to encourage you to explore the literary world that is so often, not embraced, while we have so much immediate satisfaction through social media, so much immediate, pieces of information coming at us all the time. It takes commitment to read through a book, and like anything else in your world, you can absolutely do it. You can absolutely take the opportunity to sit down for 20 minutes a day to read. I know I've heard before, oh, I just don't have time to read a book. No, you do. You do. You make time for the things that you give priority to. And with that, I want to just briefly introduce our next book. So I'm so very excited about, especially in, celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month, and for all things chingona and for amazingness of, so many of my personal experiences growing up as a child, growing up in a very Chicano environment, watching particular movies, living, a particular lifestyle, surrounded by a lot of lowriders, by a lot of Hispanic culture, and surrounded by a lot of gang activity. It was definitely a childhood that led a huge impression to my life. Some good things, some bad things, some really great things. And one of those really great things of my life was actually having the opportunity to meet one of the stars of the movie Mi Vida Loca, Angel Aviles. And I'm super excited to be able to announce that this will be the next book that we're going to be reading, especially so that we can also drive home the importance of being aware of the wonderful opportunity that we can take to improve on our mental health and wellness. So we are going to be covering Too Happy to Be Sad Girl, Surviving Sadness, Ditching Anxiety, and Learning to Thrive by Angel Aviles. And if you haven't had a chance to pick up her book, you can grab it on Amazon. It's a pretty quick read. It's less than 200 pages. So we're going to be doing probably a review of, 2 to 3 chapters in our conversations throughout the book. And I hope you are excited about our next book selection. It will be featured in Magistra magazine. We will be talking about it on the Magistra Book Club. And if you have any questions on the book or on the author, please reach out. She has an amazing Instagram. I love following her on social, on LinkedIn, as well as on Facebook. So go ahead and prepare. I hope you enjoyed Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. I hope you enjoyed my highlighting some of my favorite passages of the book. And I'm super excited to be starting our next book in the Magistra Book Club. So with that, have a fantastic rest of your day. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.